So good afternoon everyone and welcome to the Barratt London Help for Homebuyers webinar. My name's Ed McCoy. I'm the Sales Director for Barratt West London and I'm going to be hosting the event this afternoon. Over the past couple of years we've held a number of events, Help for Homebuyer events in central London, generally in hotels and conference facilities. For obvious reasons we're not doing that at the moment. We generally have hundreds of people attend, listening to industry experts and guest speakers imparting their knowledge about the London property market and the home buying process. Primarily attended by first-time buyers, really desperate for knowledge and about to take their first steps on the property ladder. So really this event is no different, apart from the fact that we're not sat in a hotel room. We're all sat in this new virtual format, but we had about 400 people respond saying that they were going to attend, so welcome to each and every one of you. So let me introduce the guest speakers and the content that we'll be covering this afternoon. I'm delighted that we've been joined by Alex Rose from Zoopla. He's the head of new homes. I'm sure most of you know who Zoopla are, but they are one of the leading UK property portals. They've got an extensive library of historical house data, house price data, area trends and market insight. Alex will give you an update on the London property market, hopefully dispelling some of the myths out there and confirming that now really is a great time to buy still. Secondly, I'm joined by Adrian MacDiarmid, who's head of mortgages at Barratt Developments. He works with all of the major lenders, helping ensure that their product portfolio is competitive and relevant when purchasing a new build property in the UK. He'll be covering the fantastic government-backed equity loan scheme, Help to Buy, which allows you to purchase with just a 5% deposit. And he will go through what it costs and the scheme mechanics of how it actually works. Then he will move into broader kind of mortgage advice, the do's and the don'ts, and specifically getting yourself mortgage fit. And then I will finish by introducing Barratt London, our product portfolio, where you can purchase one of our properties and how you can take the first steps to owning a new Barratt home. There is an opportunity to ask questions, so please submit your questions through Zoom. Conscious of time at the end, we will answer as many as we can, but any questions that we don't have time to answer, we will send a question and answer document out to everyone that has attended the webinar this afternoon. So without further ado, let me hand over to Alex.
Thank you very much, Ed. So yeah, just to introduce myself, I mean, I've been around in property now for 17 years, working in portals and in consultation to house builders, and most recently worked for a business called HomeTrack, which you may not be aware of, but HomeTrack actually work with a lot of mortgage lenders around looking at data and valuations in the industry. Now, HomeTrack were acquired by Zoopla a couple of years ago, which is how I came about to joining Zoopla. And now we've really been able to bring together the best in breed of property market data from the consumer side on Zoopla and from the mortgage lending side. So I just want to give you a run through on how we're seeing the market at the moment. Some of you may have seen my presentation in January, and I think it's fair to say that at that point in time, none of us could have foreseen the circumstances that we'd sort of find ourselves in a few months later. But important that we take some time to reflect on the market, and I want to take you through three areas today. So we're going to look at demand, who's buying homes at the moment, and then lastly I'll try and look into my crystal ball and where we see house prices moving to. So Ed, if you could just move through a couple of slides, please. So if we take a look now at who's actually buying homes, or the number of transactions in the property market each year, the long run average, which over 50 years is about 1 to 1.2 million transactions happen each year in the UK. You can see actually during the global financial crisis on this slide around 2008, 2009, when obviously there was higher unemployment and it was more difficult to get credit and mortgages, that transactions dipped to 0.7 million in a year. This time around it's very different. We're forecasting that there will be a reduction in transactions this year, somewhere around the 0.6 to 0.7 million. But this time very different in that transactions have been slowed really by lockdown and the restrictions on the market. but the underlying fundamentals in demand haven't really shifted away, and people still want to buy property. Employment is still high, and with mortgage lenders and the government actually stepping in to protect mortgages and offer mortgage holidays, actually that's meant that we're not experiencing repossessions or anything like that yet in the market. And also I think it's important to note that the construction industry and builders such as Barratt haven't been able to build for the last few weeks. So we're also seeing that we believe output in terms of new homes built this year will also be about 35% lower than last year. So really supply and demand sort of matching each other and mirroring each other during the lockdown period. Ed, if you could move on, please. I think where we're all sort of slightly taken aback is, no surprise that during lockdown we saw demand on Zoopla fall pretty significantly after the Prime Minister's announcement in sort of mid to late March. But actually, since the English market reopened on the 13th of May, we've seen demand rebound, and this is a number of inquiries that we're measuring here on Zoopla for property. And what you can see now in orange is we are way above the year-on-year demand in 2019 for the numbers of inquiries being sent. So there's huge pent-up demand over the last few weeks, and it's keeping estate agents and house builders busier than ever right now. So I think it's important to think about who's moving homes and the dynamics in the industry at the moment. So if we take a look at the purchasers in the market, just want to draw your attention here to the two groups in the centre. So we're looking at first-time buyers and existing owners. Existing owners meaning people moving for the second, third, or fourth time maybe in their life. And what we can see is since 2010, with the low interest rates in the marketplace, and also the introduction of Help to Buy in 2013, that actually first-time buyers have become the biggest buying group in this country, making up about 36% of all transactions in a given year. It's really important, again, for the supply and demand dynamic that we see in the marketplace, because as first-time buyers, and many of you will be in that situation, you don't actually have a property to sell. So it creates, again, a supply and demand pressure on the market for all these buyers sort of buying up property, but not necessarily having stuff to onward sell. And that can impact sometimes the number of properties available on the market at any one time. Ed, if you could move on, please. And also important to consider, if you're buying a property today or you're in a property, how long on average you're going to spend in that property. And this heat map just demonstrates something that's often quite surprising to people, but you can see in areas here, in those dark areas around West London and the home counties, that actually people on average spend 23 years in their homes, and the average is well above 16 years. So really important to consider, if you're purchasing a home, making sure it's, it becomes that home that you can envisage, having friends and family around in, but also it's very much a long-term investment, and important to consider it in that way. Ed, if we just finally look at house prices, and I think this is the question that A, I get asked the most, and B, if I had £1 for every time I would be asked, then I'd be a very wealthy man. But I think it's important to consider right now, depending on which side of the fence you sit, the press and media in this country, we generally read stuff that's either very positive or very negative. I don't see a lot of halfway house stuff, but we have seen a few misleading headlines. I think this one on the BBC, and not picking them out really, but the headline here, that house prices see the largest fall in 11 years. I think if you read it down to the second or third paragraph of that story, what it actually says is house prices have gone up 2% in 2020. They just aren't going up at the same speed that they have been. And really that's because, the market in essence just stopped for a few months over the last few months. And Ed, if you move on again, please. This graph was described to me by a colleague yesterday as boring, and apologies if it is, but it's a good way to kind of see what's happening in the market. And really, if I draw your attention to the box on the right hand side of that line graph, and the bars in grey, what that's showing us is properties that are on Zoopla that have been sold and the price that they've been sold for. And what you can see is that real spike in grey on the right-hand side, where it's actually showing us a 12% increase on the values of properties sold on Zoopla since lockdown was lifted in the property market, which is really interesting to see. And I think it just goes to show that the amount of pent-up demand in the market is really rebounded far quicker than we perhaps would have expected. And in orange, we're actually looking at new properties coming onto the market, and again, what price they're coming onto the market. And again, that's about 4% higher than it has been. So, some interesting fundamentals. It's not to say that prices are about to take off, but as mentioned earlier, I think rather unprecedented to be sort of in a recession, if you like, but with low unemployment still, and our mortgages and our rental payments protected for the time being. So we don't see any downward pressure at this point in time on house prices. So Ed, if you could just move on, please. I think just to summarise really, I think key points for us. As I say, demand has just rebounded, perhaps more than we would have expected. Goes to show that really we've had an unprecedented period where we've spent longer than ever in our properties, and we're probably considering whether we're at home with parents or we're in a flat share, or we're in our existing property and we want to move. We've had time to think about what we want next and to consider our options. So we've seen this real spike in demand. Interest rates are low and look set to remain low for some time. And with Help to Buy, it allows you to contribute a large deposit and get those best interest rates. So again, mortgage credit and finance is as cheap as it's ever been. And first and foremost, really consider that your property is a home. And it's somewhere that you're going to be for 10 to 20 years, as I've already said. So think about it very much as a long-term investment. Just finally, hopefully you found these interests interesting and insightful, and you can register on the Zoopla website by just going to www.zoopla.co.uk/register, and you can get some of these insights into your inbox on a regular basis. So I look forward to answering any questions at the end and passing back to Ed.
Thanks very much, Alex. Okay, brilliant. I'll hand over to Adrian, who'll take you through his session.
So thanks, Ed, very much indeed. So as Ed said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the mortgage market and Help to Buy specifically, and expand on some of the points that Alex has already raised. On the face of it, that's probably this is probably the dull bit that's sandwiched in the middle. So please don't go and make a cup of tea just yet, because actually for most of our customers, buying a home is one of the most momentous experiences of their life. It's where they start a new life. It's where they bring up their family, and hopefully this is some of the stuff that will show you that it might be attainable for you, and hopefully help you on your way to owning your own home. So Help to Buy, first of all, and it's particularly attractive in London, and there aren't that many rules, but these are some of them. So the first one is that the property you buy has to be a new build, which is clearly great for us. There's a maximum purchase price of £600,000, and it has to be the only property you own, so it can't be to let out, or you can't have another property in the background. And at some point you have to prove that the payments are affordable to you, which is not only sensible, but it's clearly the right thing for you as a customer as well. Ed? So this is how it's structured. So I've taken a typical £400,000 purchase price. You will need a 5% deposit. So in this case, that's £20,000. And in London, the government will actually give you a loan of 40% of the value of the property. So that in this case is £160,000, leaving you to take a mortgage of £220,000. So the attraction of the scheme is obvious from this infographic. So to buy a £400,000 property, you only need to take out a mortgage of £220,000, and you only need a deposit of 5%. And what makes the scheme particularly attractive, as you can see here, in the first 5 years, there's actually no monthly cost to that government equity loan. You don't pay anything towards the equity loan until you get to year 6, and even then it's 1.75% of the loan, so a relatively, well, a very cheap interest rate. That does actually increase the 1.75% in subsequent years, but it's only by retail price index plus 1%. So hopefully the payments on that loan, given the fact that you pay nothing for 5 years, will be very manageable by the time you get to year 6. And slide, please. Downside clearly and there's always a downside to paying 0% interest, is that what you actually have to pay back when you sell the property, or at any point of your choosing before you sell it, is 40% of the value of the property. So in this particular case, you bought at 400,000. If the property's gone up by 2% a year, in year 6 it's worth just over 440,000. So your loan has gone up by the equivalent amount, and instead of owing 160,000, you have to pay back 176,500. So £16,000 more, but your property's gone up by around about 40,000. So the idea is that you've got plenty of equity to repay your loan. I'm often asked, and customers often think, that actually applying for this type of loan is very complicated. I've tried to make it as simple as possible here. Clearly there are a few more steps, but in reality it's not that difficult, and we can refer you to independent mortgage advisors who will be able to help you at every stage of this process. Firstly, you have to make an application for the loan. So there's a government agency called a Help to Buy agency who you make an application for. It's not desperately complicated. Having reviewed your application, which normally takes 4 or 5 working days, they issue what's called an authority to proceed, which basically says, yes, we're happy to lend you the money and you can go ahead. At that stage, you'd apply for a mortgage offer, which in the example was the 220,000. So that can be to any lender that participates in this scheme, and there are lots of them. And having got your mortgage offer, and with your solicitor having done the legal work, you exchange contracts. Exchange of contract is basically a legally binding agreement at which we agree to sell you the property and you agree to buy it from us. And at that stage, we're both committed. Depending on how far we are in the build process, we'll then agree a date with you or give you an estimated date when we've actually finished the property, finished your home, and you can move in. That's clearly a slight simplification. If you want more information, clearly come and talk to us. We can refer you to one of our highly specialised mortgage advisors. Or if you go online, you can look at the Help to Buy Buyer's Guide, and that gives plenty more information if you just Google Help to Buy Buyer's Guide. So moving on to the mortgage market more generally, and not wanting to follow Alex's boring lead in terms of showing lots of graphs. Hopefully this is quite simple, and what it shows is that since 2015 interest rates have dropped dramatically. You'll see at the right hand side there's been a slight uptick since March. At the beginning of the COVID crisis. That represents an average increase of 0.1%, which on a £300,000 mortgage is around about £15 a month. So you can see that in historical terms, interest rates are still pretty much as low as they've ever been. And if you look on the right there, you can see an example of it. You can actually borrow on a 2-year fixed basis from Santander on Help to Buy at 1.54%. Some of our customers like to have the additional security of knowing where they stand for a longer period of time. So if you wanted to fix that rate for 5 years, that can be at 1.89. So by doing that, you've got a very low rate for 5 years, guaranteed that your payments won't change, and you're paying 0% to the government for that 5 years. So that's a good level of security for the first 5 years. The other thing that's really interesting about the mortgage market now, which probably wasn't true a few years ago, it caters for a vast different variety of customer circumstances. So it's worthwhile coming to talk to us almost whatever your situation. You can get mortgages even on the Help to Buy scheme, even if you had some credit problems in the past. So if you've missed some credit card payments and mobile phone payments, that doesn't necessarily preclude you from getting a mortgage. There are an increasing amount of people that aren't necessarily permanently employed these days in all sorts of different industries. So they're either on a contract or even on 0 hours contracts. If you can prove that you've been earning the same level of income for a long period of time, it's possible that you can be helped. Self-employed people used to be quite problematic to get a mortgage. Sorry, Ed, can you just wind back? Self-employed people used to be quite difficult to get a mortgage for. They used to have to be self-employed for at least 3 years. Now there are lenders that will grant a mortgage to customers who have only been self-employed for a year. And many customers are reliant on bonus, overtime or commission. And so long as you can prove a level of that sort of income over a period of time, then some, or in some cases all of that, can be taken into account. So whatever your circumstances, don't discount yourself. Come and talk to us. We'll make sure you get expert advice. Next slide, please. One of the reasons the market is so competitive is because there are so many lenders competing in the marketplace. So you can see some names there that you'd recognise, Halifax and Barclays and Nationwide, I'm sure. There are also plenty of lenders that will cater for perhaps customers that don't fit the mainstream. So I've included within there the Darlington Building Society, who offer enhanced income multiples to certain professionals. Kensington, who will deal with self-employed people, perhaps people who have adverse credit. So, and because there's so many different lenders available, that helps keep rates low, helps keep criteria really good, so that as many people as possible can apply for a mortgage and get a home. Last one, I think. So yeah, finally, just to finish off. So it depends at what stage in your journey you are at buying a house, but there's a couple of things that I'd suggest you do. One is you can download very easily off the internet. Money Expert do a very good one, a budget planner, and it's worthwhile just spending 5 minutes just looking at your bank statements and deciding what you spend your money on. Once you've done that and realised that you've got lots of money left in the bank at the end of each month, and therefore you probably haven't told yourself the truth entirely, probably best to have another go. And what it will show you is where you're spending money that you can save, and it'll give you a really good idea what you can afford on a monthly basis. Once you've done that, then what you need to do is speak to an independent mortgage broker, particularly one that specialises in new build if you're looking at Help to Buy, and they'll be able to advise you on who can lend you what, which is the mortgage product that's best suited to your particular needs. The other thing that's worthwhile doing if you're at the stage where you're still saving for a deposit is there's lots of apps around. So I've chosen a couple there. I'm not recommending them because I haven't used them, but I know a lot of our customers do, Chip and Squirrel. And they just proactively help you to save money by setting goals, by rounding up payments and putting the additional payments into a savings account, and lots of prompts to help you save and just get behind you in your motivation in order to save the deposit you need in order to buy your home. So very happy to take questions, as Ed said at the end, and that's my lot. So if I can pass back to you, Ed.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Adrian. So you've heard from Alex that the market fundamentals are good and demand has bounced back since the lockdown. Adrian has confirmed how easy it is to purchase a new build property with Help to Buy with just a 5% deposit. So the final part of the presentation will cover kind of 4 key areas. Firstly, why you should choose Barratt London as the preferred developer of choice. I'll be able to showcase the portfolio of developments across London that have homes that you can purchase using the London Help to Buy scheme. Really want to emphasise why buying new over the second-hand market has significant advantages for yourself. And finally, what you need to do if you want to start the process of buying your new home. So Barratt London is part of Barratt Developments, who are the largest developer in the UK, building just short of 18,000 new homes last year. Founded in 1958 by Sir Laurie Barratt. We are very proud to say we've just celebrated our 60th anniversary, so we've definitely honed our craft. We've developed a reputation in the industry as a leader of delivering well-designed, high-quality, affordable homes, particularly throughout London. We're very proud of the fact that we have been awarded the HBF 5-star customer rating for the 11th year running, the only major house builder to achieve this. All of our customers are asked after they have purchased and moved into the property if they would recommend us to friends and family. And to achieve the 5-star rating, you need to have over a 90% recommend score, something the business is extremely proud of. As I say, we've achieved it for 11 years in a row. You also want absolute confidence that your new home will be built to exacting standards. And we have won more external NHBC awards for build quality than any other developer for the last 14 years. This means really that when you purchase your new Barratt home, you can absolutely be assured of outstanding design, exceptional build quality, and industry-leading customer care. So let's have a look at where you can purchase a Barratt London home using the Help to Buy scheme. We have 7 developments currently across London that have homes ready to purchase using the Help to Buy scheme, from Hackbridge in the south London to Hayes in West London, Mill Hill in North London, and for West Ham fans, Upton Gardens in East London. We ensure that we buy and purchase land and build developments in locations where customers want to live, So you'll notice that connectivity is key with all of our developments, adjacent to either a local tube, national rail or overground station, creating short commuting times into central London. So why should you build why should you consider a new build property over the second-hand market? Well, there's four main advantages to a new build over traditional housing stock. The primary advantage, as we've already talked about, is that you can benefit from the Help to Buy scheme and buy with just a 5% deposit and take advantage of a very attractive mortgage products. Mortgage repayments using Help to Buy are often significantly cheaper than renting a like-for-like property in the area. So just speak, as Adrian says, to one of our specialist mortgage advisors who will be able to help you. I've touched on our industry-leading customer care programme. Once you've purchased your new home and exchanged, you'll be handed over to one of our specialist experience managers who are available on each of our sites. They will support you through the home buying journey right up to completion and post-completion, ensuring that you are completely satisfied with your new home. Most importantly, all Barratt London properties come with a 2-year fixture and fittings warranty and a 10-year NHBC guarantee, so you have complete confidence that if anything goes wrong post-completion, we will be there to resolve any issues that you have. Finally, obviously, a new home is like a blank canvas, allowing you to personalise your new home with a range of customer selections, such as flooring and kitchens, subject to you purchasing early enough in the build programme, allowing the builders to install all of those customer selections for you. So, having listened to Alex, Adrian and myself, and you've decided that now is the time to commence your search for a new home, and you can begin your journey very, very easily. All you need to do is go to the Barratt London website. Once you've looked at and searched one of the developments and you've decided you'd like more information, you just need to book an appointment, which is in the top right-hand corner of any of the development web pages. My team will be on hand to conduct that first initial appointment with you over the phone at a time and a date that you choose. We'll initially discuss your requirements. We'll put you in touch with one of the new homes specialist mortgage advisors that Adrian referred to get you financially qualified. And we'll be able to, from the comfort of your home, take you on a virtual tour of the development and show you the homes that are available. Then, once that's all been done and you're happy and you want to take it to the next level, you just need to make an appointment and you will go down to the development and see the site firsthand, looking at our finished product in terms of the show home. The sales advisor will be able to give you a tour using the development model, and obviously you can go into the show home yourself. We at the moment have implemented significant and robust social distancing protocols, so the safety of you and obviously our sales advisors is absolutely paramount, but you can feel completely safe that you can visit one of our developments. So that concludes the formal presentation, and we'll now move into the Q&A. We have had an amazing amount of questions, so we're not going to have an opportunity to answer them. But what I would say is what we will do, as I committed to at the start of the webinar, we'll get together as a team and answer every single one of them. So one of the questions is clearly relevant to you, and we will send all of the questions and answers out to everybody that attended the webinar by close of play tomorrow. So, first question I've had, and perhaps Alex, you could answer this. First question, is now a good time to buy a home or should I wait?
Well, good question. I think, you know, it comes down to personal circumstances really. So you have to look at your own individual position. I think if you're as a first time buyer, looking at the rental data at the moment that we're seeing in the market, average tenancy in this country is 4 years in a property. If you take a rent perhaps in London of say £1,500 a month, essentially you're talking £72,000 over the life of that tenancy. So I think if you can, then you can take advantage, I guess, of the low interest rates and schemes such as Help to Buy and actually get onto the ladder. And you're in a position to do that, then I think it's one of those things that do so. And in terms of timing, you know, think about it, as I say, as that long-term investment. You know, you're going to be in that property for some time. So, you know, any changes in the market will certainly sort of ride out over time. But I think, you know, as I say, you know, we're also seeing rents increase at the moment, which is a very real pressure in the market. And for anyone looking to stay in the rental market, could well be getting you know, contacted by their landlord in the next few months. So yeah, I'd say so, but make sure it's right for you, and think through all the considerations and do your research.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. Second question then to Adrian. I've heard mortgages have become more difficult to get approval for since lockdown. Is that true?
So I think probably it was true, but things move very quickly. I mean, I think this has been a very difficult few weeks for all of us in different ways, but and not least for the banks. You know, they've had to deal with thousands of customers that want payment holidays. You know, they've had to move call centres to people working from home. So there was a time probably for a few weeks where lending was quite restricted and a little bit slow. They've moved out of that extraordinarily quickly, so they've actually done a fantastic job. Criteria has improved again. I showed you earlier that rates are still in the historical context as low as they've ever been. And actually, you know, from a new build perspective, Help to Buy makes sure that you can still buy one of our homes with a 5% deposit. So yes, that was true, but it's bounced back remarkably quickly. And to be honest with you, we're pretty much back in the same place as we were before the crisis. So really good news if you're looking to get a mortgage. There's still lots of choice and still some really great rates available.
Brilliant, thank you. Unfortunately, there's quite a lot of questions for you, Adrian, so I'll keep going. What would be your advice to clear the government equity loan before the interest rate kicks in?
I mean, all financial decisions are down to people's personal circumstances. I think that, I mean, you saw the interest rate earlier on one of the slides, it's 1.75%. So, I mean, it's as cheap as any mortgage really at the moment. And I think that the downside of the loan is that the amount you have to repay will increase in line with the value of the property, but equally it means you've got more equity in the property. So I wouldn't use the interest rate kicking in necessarily as the trigger to think about clearing it. I think there's lots of other considerations. I think at 1.75%, you know, the loan's still cheap, so I wouldn't be too concerned about just year 6 and the interest rate kicking in. But you know, if you've got the money to clear it, then you're in a great position to be able to make the choice that's best for you at the time.
Perfect, great. So another one, Adrian.
Thanks.
So what will be best for first-time buyers, shared ownership or Help to Buy?
Well, a very different scheme. So with shared equity or Help to Buy, you own the whole property, and the equity loan is what it says. It's a loan to help you buy the property. Whereas with shared ownership, you know, typically speaking, you own 25 or 50% of the property and you pay rent on the rest. So because you're paying rent on the part that you don't own with shared equity, generally speaking, when you look at the monthly repayments, the Help to Buy shared equity loan is significantly cheaper monthly. So my view would be that if monthly cost is important to you, you'll generally find that the Help to Buy shared equity loan works out better. But I think it's important to consider all options, because, you know, when you're buying a property, it's for, you know, it's a big commitment and you have to make the decision that's right for you. But certainly from a monthly payment perspective, Help to Buy will work out very well.
Perfect, okay. And do you think the Help to Buy scheme will be continued beyond 2023?
I'd love it if it was, but we're not sure at the moment. I think governments have plenty of other things to think about rather than Help to Buy shared equity at the moment. So I don't think we're going to get any guidance in the short term, certainly beyond 2023. I think we would have to consider that they tell us it's going to end in 2023. So if you want to take advantage of it, it's probably a good idea to start thinking about it now.
Okay, so that answers another question of when does Help to Buy end. It's certainly 2023 at the moment, so yeah. And then another question we've had, are we going to send the video afterwards? So yeah, we'll be able to send the recording or a link to the recording afterwards. So if you did miss the first part of the presentation, no problem at all. Should you apply for Help to Buy before finding a home, or find the home first, then apply?
I think you can do both in conjunction with each other, but before you spend a lot of time, you know, actually visiting show homes, it's certainly best to make sure that you can afford the monthly repayments and you're going to be eligible for the scheme. So I think my advice would be, I mean, you can do as much research as you can online. I think that's a good idea, to see where you'd like to live, what sort of property you'd like to live in. And I think then probably if you get in contact with us, as we've all, I think, mentioned, it's best to take really good mortgage advice as to what the best mortgage for you is, what the monthly repayments would be, whether it's really affordable to you. So I would do that at a very early stage in the process, just to make sure that you know, you're looking at properties that are within your budget.
Yeah, I'd just echo that sentiment really, and say that you know, for the question about, you know, should I be looking at shared ownership or should I be looking at Help to Buy, I think it's really important that, you know, you go through that kind of financial health check, you speak to professionals in the marketplace, and they should be able to guide you as to what, you know, based on your affordability, what scheme suits you the best.
Then Adrian, a question around the changes between the Help to Buy scheme from the 1st of April 2021 to 2023. What's the changes that affect customers?
Okay, so the changes are mainly that it will be restricted to first-time buyers. So currently, you can use Help to Buy if you have owned a property before. So from next April, it will be restricted to those who have never owned a property before. And it will be subject to regional price caps. So that actually doesn't affect London, because the cap stays the same at 600,000. So in London, it's really just restricted to first-time buyers. That's the only change of any significance. So yeah, we're pleased to be able to have the scheme in London really pretty much as it stands for first-time buyers through to 2023.
Then a question from myself, approximately how long does it take the process from finding a development to exchanging contracts? So we obviously work with a number of new homes mortgage advisors that Adrian has referred to. So once we've agreed the sale and you've been financially qualified, a reservation agreement and deposit would be paid of £500 for Help to Buy. And then we would expect the exchange of contracts to take place within 6 weeks. That allows you to effectively get your approval for your mortgage and get approval for all the Help to Buy funding. What happens then post-exchange is we are obviously working to targeted build dates, and we will notify you nearer to the build completion day of our intention to what we call serve notice, and we will give you a minimum of 10 days notice for you to complete on your property. But, you know, all the way through the process, we'll be keeping in touch with you and reassuring you of the build program, that we're on track and that we're going to deliver to the dates. So it can be an extremely easy and hassle-free process. So I think you covered this, Adrian. If the property value increases 5% after 5 years and you're using Help to Buy, then the government get a share of it, as they provided the 40%.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So the massive advantage of Help to Buy is that you pay no interest on the 40% loan for the 5-year period, but yes, the government share in any upside of the property. So interestingly, if anybody was worried about house prices decreasing, there's Help to Buy is one of the few schemes where, if for whatever reason there wasn't enough money to pay back the equity loan, then the government will walk away from any shortfall. So you've almost got a negative equity guarantee on the scheme. So yeah, that is right, Adrian.
Then there's a question here around, does Barratt have a consistent ground rent regime across the board? So across all of our sites, we are very consistent in terms of what ground rent is charged. You'll be charged 0.1% of the value of your property. So if you're purchasing a property for £400,000, then the ground rent on an annual basis will be £400. Very, very simple. It's what assistance do you offer in terms of stamp duty contributions. So as with any negotiation, when you're purchasing a property, we will come to an agreed purchase price. We've got many, many schemes that we can help customers move, whether it's by contributing to some of your fixtures and fittings, or a small contribution to stamp duty is sometimes negotiated. Really depends upon the plot, the build progress, and your circumstances and what you're looking for. But we try and structure a deal that ultimately works for you and allows you to purchase the property. When applying for a mortgage, Adrian, do they take into consideration the service charge of buying a flat, or is it just the property price that's considered?
So any outgoings that you have will be considered. So when you do an affordability check with the lender, they'll take into account all your income, and they'll also take into account your outgoings. So what your estimated energy bill is going to be, your service charge, your ground rent. Typically speaking, Help to Buy restricts you to borrowing around about 4.5 times your income before any deductions for service charge and ground rent. So yeah, and I think it's important from a personal point of view, and it's the reason I sort of guided you towards the budget planner at the end, is irrespective of whether the lender will lend you the money or not, it's really important that you're comfortable with the monthly repayments. So, you know, working out what your outgoings are, what your income is on a monthly basis, and just making sure that you're comfortable with that and that it's sustainable over the period of the mortgage is a really important exercise to go through yourself, irrespective of what a lender will or won't lend you.
Brilliant. The government made an announcement of 30% discount for key workers and first-time buyers. Where can I find a comprehensive list of such apartments online?
Is that you or me?
Do you want to go with that one?
I can try and pick it up better. I think at the moment, so they've made the
Right.
announcement, but there's no detail behind it.
No.
So it's a sort of something that they're going to get around to on their long list, unfortunately. I think watch this space, but for the time being, there's no detail about it for either the industry or for the consumer. Okay.
Conscious of time, so we'll make this the final question. As I say, I will make sure that we answer every single one of the questions that have come in. We've had quite a number, but there's quite a lot of repetition on the questions, so we'll come back with detailed answers on each of the questions tomorrow. Last one, Adrian, how long does the average Help to Buy process take until completion?
Well, till completion. Completion's when your property's ready. So you know, sometimes, particularly in London, you might agree to buy a property which isn't quite finished yet. Actually applying for the mortgage and getting Help to Buy authorization is actually a pretty simple and straightforward process, you know, particularly if you use a specialist new build mortgage advisor. So to get authority to proceed from a Help to Buy agent normally takes around about a week. To get a mortgage offer from scratch, probably 2 weeks. So it's really not an onerous process, as long as you're being helped by somebody that understands what needs to be done and can help you with all the paperwork and make sure you get it right first time. So yeah, two to 3 weeks to possibly to get a mortgage offer and authority to proceed, probably around about the same time or a little bit longer to do the legal work. So you're normally looking at 3 to 4 weeks to actually be in a position where you can exchange contracts. And even if the property isn't ready, you're guaranteed that, as I mentioned earlier, we're committed to selling you the property, you're committed to buying it, and at least you can look forward to moving into your new home whenever it's ready.
Perfect, great. So thank you firstly to Alex and Adrian, who's helped me co-facilitate this webinar. We hope you found it useful, and we will come back with all of the other answers to the questions that we haven't managed to answer today tomorrow. So take care, stay safe, and hopefully we can help you purchasing your new home soon. Thank you.